Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Blood Ties. Vincent Mercer's life had been built on precision. As one of Boston's most respected trauma surgeons, he'd spent 15 years developing a reputation for unwavering composure under pressure. That composure shattered at 2:17 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday in October. Dr. Mercer. The nurse's voice cracked as she burst into the surgical lounge. Emergency department, now. Vincent recognized the look, the hesitation, the pity. He'd worn that expression himself when delivering catastrophic news. What happened? He demanded, already moving. Multiple vehicle accident on Route 1. 3 critical patients just arrived. Something in her tone made him break into a run. As he reached the emergency bay, the world slowed to a crawl. Through the glass, he saw 3 gurneys surrounded by medical staff working frantically. One patient's arm dangled lifelessly off the side. The diamond tennis bracelet he'd given Diana for their 10th anniversary, catching the harsh fluorescent light. His wife, his sister Audrey, his 17-year-old son Leo. All unconscious, all broken. Vincent lunged forward, but a firm hand caught his shoulder. "You can't see them yet," said Dr. Maxwell Rowan, head of emergency medicine, a man who'd been Vincent's mentor and closest friend for over a decade. Trembling, Vincent asked, "Why?" Maxwell lowered his eyes and whispered, "The police will explain everything once they arrive." Your wife had done. He trailed off as 2 officers approached. Detective Bryce Lambert, a weathered man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair, introduced himself and his younger partner. "Dr. Mercer, we need to speak privately." In a small consultation room, Lambert spoke with calculated precision. "Your wife was driving. Blood alcohol level well above the legal limit. We found empty wine bottles, prescription sedatives registered to your sister, and..." He paused. "Evidence suggesting your wife attempted to deliberately crash the vehicle." Vincent's world collapsed. "That's impossible." "There's more," Lambert continued. "Your son called 911 before the crash. The recording." He played the audio on his phone. Leo's terrified voice filled the room. "My mom's driving crazy. She's drunk, saying she's going to end it all. Please help." The call ended with screeching tires and Leo's scream. Vincent's mind whirled with questions. Diana didn't drink. She'd been a recovering alcoholic for 8 years. And why would she have Audrey and Leo with her at midnight on a weekday? "Dr. Mercer," the detective said gently, "we found this in your wife's purse." He slid a hotel key card across the table. "It's for room 812 at the Harbor View Hotel. We've already spoken with the staff. Your wife has been meeting someone there regularly for the past 6 months." The world tilted on its axis. As Vincent tried to process this information, his phone buzzed. The hospital administrator. The board needed to speak with him immediately. Hours later, Vincent stood in his dimly lit kitchen, staring at surveillance photos. The private investigator he'd hired had worked quickly. The images showed Diana entering the Harbor View with a man Vincent recognized immediately, Bradley Thompson, the hospital's new administrative director. The man who'd just fired Vincent, citing budget constraints despite Vincent's seniority and stellar record. Another revelation hit even harder. Financial records showed Diana had withdrawn nearly $200,000 from their joint accounts over the past year. Their son's college fund emptied. Their vacation property, a second mortgage taken out without his knowledge. As dawn broke, Vincent sat alone, surrounded by evidence of betrayal. Something cold and unrecognizable awakened inside him. The compassionate healer was gone. In his place stood a man with a singular purpose. His phone rang. "Maxwell, they're stabilized. Diana will recover fully. Audrey has spinal injuries. She may never walk again. Leo," his voice cracked. "Leo has severe brain trauma. We don't know if he'll wake up." Vincent closed his eyes, his decision made. They would all pay for what they'd done. Every last one of them. No matter how long it took, no matter what it cost him. "I understand," he said, his voice hollow. "I'll be there soon." He wouldn't be there soon. He had preparations to make. Plans to set in motion. A life to dismantle so he could rebuild it into something altogether different. Something lethal. Chapter 2. Tangled Webs. 3 weeks passed. Vincent sat in an unmarked van across from the rehabilitation center where Diana now resided. Her recovery had been remarkably swift, a fact that only fueled his suspicion and rage. Through his surveillance equipment, he watched her physical therapy session, noting how she laughed with her therapist. No sign of the supposed depression that had supposedly driven her to crash the car. He shifted his attention to the tablet in his lap, which displayed feeds from the cameras he'd hidden in Bradley Thompson's home and office. Vincent had spent his life savings on the best surveillance equipment money could buy. Every conversation, every text message, every email, nothing escaped his notice. The pieces were coming together. Diana and Bradley's affair had begun shortly after Bradley joined the hospital board. Their plan was simple but effective. Use Diana's access to Vincent's finances and Bradley's influence to systematically dismantle Vincent's life while building their own. The accident had been staged to eliminate loose ends. Vincent's sister Audrey had discovered their scheme and threatened to expose them. Leo had been collateral damage. "You were right about everything," said Tessa Reeves, sliding into the passenger seat. A former nurse at Vincent's hospital and the only person he still trusted, Tessa had become his reluctant accomplice. "I accessed Diana's medical records. No trace of alcohol in her system by the time she reached the hospital. Someone cleaned up the evidence." Vincent nodded. The attending physician that night was Dr. Peter Wallace, Bradley's former college roommate. "There's more," Tessa said. "Bradley's been visiting your son when he thinks no one's watching. Last time, he said something disturbing to Leo while he was unconscious. I recorded it." She handed Vincent a small device. He pressed play. Bradley's hushed voice. "Just let go, kid. It's better for everyone if you don't wake up. Especially for your mother." Vincent's knuckles turned white as he gripped the recorder. "And Audrey, still sedated most of the time. When she's conscious, she asks for you. The staff has been told you're having a psychological breakdown and can't visit." "Perfect," Vincent murmured. "That fits their narrative. Keep watching them. I need to finalize things on my end." Later that evening, Vincent met with Dominic Vargas, a former patient whose life Vincent had saved after a gang-related shooting. Dominic now ran one of the city's most powerful criminal organizations. "I need someone to disappear," Vincent said, sliding a folder across the table. Dominic raised an eyebrow. "This is serious territory, document. No going back. I saved your life. Now I'm collecting." Dominic studied Vincent's face. "You've changed." "Yes." After Dominic left, Vincent drove to his storage unit. Inside were the last remnants of his former life: medical awards, family photos, mementos of 15 years of marriage. He doused everything with gasoline. As flames consumed his past, Vincent made a phone call to an unlisted number. "It's me," he said when someone answered. "I'm ready to proceed." The voice on the other end belonged to Naomi Walsh, a federal prosecutor who specialized in medical fraud cases. "You understand what this means? Once we start, there's no turning back." "I understand perfectly," Vincent replied. "They took everything from me. Now I'm going to return the favor." What Diana, Bradley, and their accomplices didn't know was that Vincent had been quietly gathering evidence for years. Not of their affair, that was new, but of something much bigger. A widespread billing fraud scheme at the hospital that Bradley had expanded dramatically since taking over. Vincent had noticed the discrepancies, but had never imagined his own wife would be involved. Now he had proof of everything, and a federal prosecutor eager to make a career-defining case. As dawn broke, Vincent stood at his son's bedside. Leo remained unresponsive, machines breathing for him. The monitors showed minimal brain activity. "I'm going away for a while," Vincent whispered. "But I promise you this. When I return, everyone responsible for putting you here will have paid. And they'll never see it coming." He placed a hand on his son's forehead. "We always talked about how you wanted to be a doctor like your old man. Remember what I told you? First, do no harm. Well, son, I'm about to break that oath in ways you can't imagine." Chapter 3: Ghosts and Shadows. 6 months disappeared. Vincent Mercer did too. Bradley Thompson smiled as he adjusted his tie, preparing for the hospital's annual fundraising gala. His promotion to chief executive officer had been announced the previous week. Diana, now fully recovered, had moved in with him 3 months ago, after Vincent had vanished without a trace. The police investigation into Vincent's disappearance had yielded nothing. No financial transactions, no travel records, no communication. "You look handsome," Diana said, appearing in the doorway of their bedroom in an elegant black dress. "Ready to celebrate?" "More than ready," Bradley replied, kissing her. "Everything we've worked for is falling into place." What they didn't know was that Vincent watched them from across the street. His appearance dramatically altered. Gone was the clean-cut surgeon with salt and pepper hair. In his place stood a leaner, harder man with a shaved head, beard, and the weathered look of someone who'd survived hardship. For 6 months, Vincent had lived under an assumed identity, working with Naomi Walsh and a specialized FBI team to build an airtight case against the hospital's corruption ring. In exchange for his cooperation, Vincent had been granted immunity and a promise. When the time came to strike, he would have considerable latitude in how the operation unfolded. That time had come. As Bradley and Diana arrived at the gala, Vincent entered the hospital through the service entrance, using the access card Tessa had provided. He made his way to the intensive care unit where Leo remained in a persistent vegetative state. Audrey had been transferred to a long-term care facility on the other side of the state, another part of Bradley and Diana's efforts to erase Vincent's family. "Hello, son," Vincent said softly, closing the door behind him. "It's time." He injected a clear solution into Leo's foreline, not a lethal dose, but a carefully calibrated compound developed by a neurologist friend. It wouldn't wake Leo, but it would produce brain activity patterns that would register on the monitoring systems as signs of emergence from coma, the kind of signal that would demand immediate attention from the medical staff. Next, Vincent accessed the hospital's computer system using Bradley's credentials, obtained through months of careful surveillance. He downloaded specific files onto a thumb drive, then uploaded a different set of documents to the system. By morning, certain discrepancies would become apparent to anyone looking closely. Phase 1 complete. Vincent slipped out of the hospital unnoticed. As he drove to his next destination, he recalled the months spent infiltrating Bradley's personal and professional circles under his new identity. He'd become friendly with Bradley's estranged brother, his financial advisor, even his personal trainer, gathering information and planting seeds of doubt and suspicion. Vincent arrived at the Harbor View Hotel, the scene of his wife's betrayal. He'd reserved room 814, directly adjacent to the room Bradley kept permanently booked for his trysts. Vincent activated the recording equipment he'd installed weeks earlier through a maintenance worker on his payroll. His phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. "Eagle and Sparrow have landed." Party beginning. At the gala, Bradley was in his element, charming donors and accepting congratulations from colleagues. Diana glittered at his side, playing the role of supportive partner. Neither noticed a waiter who looked vaguely familiar refilling their champagne glasses throughout the evening. By midnight, the effects of the specialized compound Vincent had added to their drinks began to take hold. Not enough to incapacitate them, but enough to lower inhibitions and induce a false sense of security and excitement. As expected, they left the gala early, heading straight for their special room at the Harbor View. The minute they closed the door, they began discussing matters they would normally be cautious about. Bradley's methods for skimming hospital funds, Diana's role in setting up offshore accounts, their plans for what remained of Vincent's assets. In the adjacent room, Vincent recorded everything, a cold smile on his face. The next morning, Bradley awoke to multiple urgent messages. Leo Mercer had shown signs of brain activity overnight. The hospital's Financial Oversight Committee had found concerning discrepancies in recent reports, and an anonymous tip had prompted the IRS to freeze several accounts connected to Bradley. As Bradley rushed to damage control, Diana received a delivery, a small USB drive with a note that simply read, "I know everything." Midnight. Harbor View Room 814. "Come alone or everyone sees this." Vincent watched from his van as Diana entered the hotel that evening, her face a mask of controlled panic. When she knocked on room 814, no one answered. The door was unlocked. Inside, Diana found a laptop open on the bed. When she touched the keyboard, the screen illuminated with a video of herself and Bradley discussing the accident that had put Audrey and Leo in the hospital. Their explicit acknowledgement of their plan to murder Vincent's sister and son played in high definition. "Hello, Diana." She whirled around to find Vincent leaning against the closed door. For a moment, she didn't recognize him. "Vincent," she whispered, her face draining of color. "How? Did you really think I would just disappear?" His voice was calm, almost conversational. "That I would abandon my son? My sister?" "Vincent, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," he interrupted. "I understand that you and your lover tried to murder my family. That you stole from me. That you systematically dismantled my life while I was working 60-hour weeks saving other people's lives. Diana's survival instincts kicked in. It was Bradley's idea, all of it. He threatened me. I had no choice. Vincent smiled coldly, still lying. Even now. He stepped forward, placing a small audio recorder on the table between them. This is a recording of you and Bradley from 6 months ago, planning every detail of the accident. Would you like to hear it? Diana's composure cracked. What do you want? Justice, Vincent replied simply. And I'm going to get it. He outlined what would happen next. The evidence of financial crimes had already been delivered to federal authorities. The attempted murder evidence was in the hands of the district attorney. By morning, Bradley would be in custody. And me? Diana asked, her voice small. You, Vincent said, his eyes cold, get to make a choice. Option 1. You turn state's evidence against Bradley and everyone else involved. You plead guilty to lesser charges and serve some time, but you survive. Option 2. You try to fight, and I release everything I have, including evidence that you've been embezzling from the hospital since before Bradley arrived. That you were the architect of the entire scheme. That's not true, Diana protested weakly. It doesn't matter what's true. What matters is what I can prove. And I can prove anything I want now. Vincent moved toward the door. You have until morning to decide. As he left, Diana called after him. Vincent, wait. What about us? We could start over. Vincent turned, his expression one of pure disgust. There is no us, Diana. There never really was. You're dead to me. The only reason I'm giving you any choice at all is because you're Leo's mother. That's the only thing keeping you alive right now. The door closed behind him with quiet finality. Chapter 4. Scorched Earth. The federal agents came for Bradley Thompson at dawn, arresting him in front of hospital staff as he arrived for an early meeting. By noon, his face was splashed across every news outlet in Boston. The respected hospital executive charged with fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and attempted murder. Diana, true to her nature, chose self-preservation. She contacted Naomi Walsh and offered full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. By evening, she too was in custody, but with the promise of a significantly lighter sentence. Vincent watched it all unfold from Naomi's office, his face impassive. You've got what you wanted, Naomi observed. Thompson will go away for decades. Your wife will serve time too, though less. The evidence is overwhelming. That was just the beginning, Vincent replied. What do you mean? Bradley and Diana didn't act alone. There were others involved. People who helped them, who looked the other way. People who profited from my destruction. Naomi studied him carefully. The deal was for Thompson and your wife. Anyone else requires new evidence, new warrants. Vincent smiled thinly. I have everything we need. Over the next week, Vincent systematically dismantled the network that had supported Bradley and Diana. Dr. Peter Wallace, who had falsified medical records after the crash, was caught on tape admitting his role. He lost his medical license and faced criminal charges. The hospital board members who had expedited Vincent's termination found themselves under scrutiny for their own financial improprieties. But Vincent's true target remained elusive. Howard Kessler, the hospital's former CEO and Bradley's mentor. Kessler had retired 2 years earlier with full honors and a generous pension. On the surface, he'd had no connection to Bradley's schemes, but Vincent had discovered otherwise. Kessler had been the original architect of the fraud, grooming Bradley as his successor. More personally, Vincent had learned that Kessler harbored a decades-old grudge against Vincent's father, a renowned surgeon who had exposed Kessler's negligence early in his career. Kessler's support of Bradley and Diana had been his delayed revenge against the Mercer family. Vincent now turned his full attention to bringing down Kessler, who had insulated himself with wealth, political connections, and careful distance from direct criminal activity. You're obsessed, Tessa told him when they met in a quiet diner outside the city. Bradley and Diana are finished. Let the authorities handle Kessler. They can't touch him with what they have, Vincent replied. But I can. That night, Vincent broke into Kessler's lake house while the man was at a charity event in the city. He wasn't there to steal, he was there to plant. Specifically, to place several small recording devices and to clone Kessler's computer and phone. What Vincent discovered in the following days exceeded even his suspicions. Kessler wasn't just corrupt, he was dangerous. The deaths of two whistleblowers years earlier hadn't been the accidents they appeared to be. Kessler had connections to organized crime figures who handled problems for him. Most significantly, Vincent found communications suggesting Kessler was behind a current threat, anonymous messages to Audrey's care facility demanding she be kept sedated or else. Kessler feared that if Audrey regained full consciousness and cognitive function, she might reveal what she knew about his operations. Vincent took this evidence to Naomi, who was disturbed but cautious. "This is serious, but much of it would be inadmissible in court. We need something more concrete." "Then we'll get it," Vincent said. He visited Audrey at the care facility, bribing an orderly to get past the restrictions Bradley had put in place. His sister's once vibrant features were slack from months of sedation. According to her charts, she was being given far more medication than her condition required, enough to keep her docile and confused. Vincent adjusted her medication, replacing some of it with placebos. Then he waited. 3 days later, Tessa called with news. "She's asking for you." Her mind is clearing. That night, Vincent spent hours with his sister. As her thoughts cohered, Audrey revealed the final pieces of the puzzle. She had discovered Diana and Bradley's relationship accidentally, but her subsequent investigation had uncovered the larger conspiracy involving Kessler. When she confronted Diana, threatening to tell Vincent everything, Diana had invited her for a conciliatory dinner, drugged her drink, and staged the crash. Leo figured it out in the car, Audrey said, weeping. He tried to stop her, to take the wheel. That's when she deliberately drove into the barrier. Vincent recorded everything, his resolve hardening further. The next day, he approached Dominic Vargas with a new request. "I need to arrange a meeting with Howard Kessler. One he can't refuse." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "This is crossing a line. Document." He crossed it first. "Will you help me or not?" 2 nights later, Howard Kessler found himself zip-tied to a chair in an abandoned warehouse, facing Vincent Mercer. "What the hell is this?" Kessler demanded, struggling against his restraints. "Do you have any idea who I am? Who my connections are?" "I know exactly who your connections are," Vincent replied calmly, "including Tony Bianchi and the West Side crew. I know about the 2 nurses who accidentally overdosed after questioning your billing practices in 2017. I know about the offshore accounts, the shell companies, all of it." Kessler's face paled. "What do you want?" "A full confession. On video. Now." "That's never going to happen." Vincent smiled coldly. "I thought you might say that." He opened a laptop on the table between them. "This is a live stream to your wife's bedroom. As you can see, she's sleeping peacefully. My associate is nearby with a syringe containing the same paralytic agent used on those nurses. One call from me, and Margaret experiences firsthand what those whistleblowers felt." Kessler's face contorted with rage and fear. "You're bluffing. You're a doctor. You heal people." "I was a doctor," Vincent corrected. "You and your protégés took that from me. Now I'm just a man with nothing left to lose." He pulled out his phone. "Shall I make the call?" 30 minutes later, Vincent had his confession. The video detailed 2 decades of Kessler's crimes, including his role in orchestrating the attack on Audrey and Leo. Vincent left Kessler bound in the warehouse with the video uploaded to a secure server and an anonymous tip sent to the police. By morning, Kessler would join Bradley in custody, his reputation and freedom destroyed. As Vincent drove away, his phone rang. It was the hospital. Leo's condition had changed. They needed him there immediately. Chapter 5. Calculated Risks. Vincent raced to the hospital, his mind churning with possibilities. Had the experimental treatment damaged Leo's brain further? Or had it actually triggered genuine recovery? He found Dr. Lisa Montgomery, the neurologist who had taken over Leo's case, reviewing brain scans. "Vincent," she said, her expression guarded. "We've been trying to reach you for days." "I'm here now," he replied. "What's happening with my son?" Lisa pointed to the latest scans. "These patterns indicate increased activity in areas associated with consciousness. He's trying to wake up, Vincent." Vincent studied the images, hope and dread warring within him. The compound he'd administered wasn't designed to cure Leo, just to create temporary patterns that would prompt closer monitoring. But these scans showed something different, genuine neural regeneration. His latest blood work showed traces of an experimental neuropeptide. Lisa continued, watching Vincent carefully. "Something that's not part of his approved treatment protocol." Vincent met her gaze steadily. If you're asking if I know anything about that, the answer is no. But I'm grateful for any improvement, whatever the cause. Lisa didn't look convinced, but she nodded. We're reducing his sedation gradually. If this pattern continues, he might regain consciousness within days. Hope flared in Vincent's chest, the first genuine hope he'd felt in months. He spent the night at Leo's bedside, watching for any sign of awareness. In the early hours of the morning, Leo's fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered. Vincent called for the medical team, who conducted a rapid assessment. He's definitely emerging, Lisa confirmed. But Vincent, I need to prepare you, brain injuries like this. Even if he wakes up, he might not be the same Leo you knew. Vincent nodded grimly. I understand. As dawn broke, Vincent received news from multiple fronts. Howard Kessler had been arrested. The FBI had raided his home and offices, discovering evidence that corroborated his confession. Bradley Thompson, learning of Kessler's arrest, had attempted to negotiate a deal, offering information on other conspirators in exchange for leniency. Diana, meanwhile, had suffered a complete breakdown in custody. According to Naomi, she was alternating between denial, rage, and desperate pleas for Vincent's forgiveness. She keeps saying there's more to the story, Naomi reported, that you don't have all the facts. She's demanding to see you. No, Vincent said flatly. She lost that right when she tried to kill our son. That afternoon, as Vincent was speaking with Leo's medical team, his burner phone rang, the line only Dominic Vargas knew. We have a situation, Dominic said without preamble. One of Kessler's men talked. They know you were behind the warehouse. They're looking for payback. Vincent processed this calmly. How much time do I have? Not much. My boys are watching your back, but these guys have reach. You need to disappear again, at least until the heat dies down. Vincent looked at his unconscious son. I can't leave. Not now. Then let me send protection. Vincent agreed reluctantly, knowing that armed guards would raise questions. But Leo's safety came first. Later that night, as Vincent dozed in the chair beside Leo's bed, a slight pressure on his hand jolted him awake. Leo's fingers were wrapped weakly around his. His son's eyes were open, unfocused, confused, but open. Leo, Vincent whispered, hardly daring to believe. Leo's lips moved silently. Then, with obvious effort, he rasped, Dad? Vincent called for the medical team, who swarmed the room, conducting rapid assessments. The initial indications were promising. Leo recognized his father, understood simple questions, and could move his extremities. Recovery would be a long road, but the first critical milestone had been reached. As the medical team continued their work, Vincent stepped into the hallway, overwhelmed with emotion. His phone buzzed with a text from Tessa, Audrey fully awake, asking for you and Leo. For the first time in nearly a year, Vincent felt a glimmer of his old self, the healer, the brother, the father. But that moment of humanity was short-lived. A nurse approached, her expression troubled. Dr. Mercer? There's a woman insisting on seeing you and Leo. She says she's Leo's mother. Vincent's jaw tightened. Diana is not permitted anywhere near my son. It's not Diana, the nurse clarified. She says her name is Renee Campbell. Vincent froze. Renee Campbell. A name from another lifetime. Leo's biological mother, who had abandoned him as an infant. The woman whose parental rights Vincent had terminated during the adoption process 15 years ago. Where is she? In the waiting area, Vincent found a slender woman in her early 40s, her blonde hair streaked with gray, her face showing signs of hard living. She stood when she saw him. Vincent, she said. It's been a long time. What are you doing here, Renee? She shifted uncomfortably. I heard about Leo on the news. About the accident. I've been sober for 3 years now. I thought maybe. You thought maybe what? That you could waltz back into his life now that he's vulnerable? After 15 years of complete silence. Renee's eyes flashed. I have rights. You have nothing, Vincent countered coldly. You terminated your parental rights. Leo is my son, legally and in every way that matters. Diana contacted me, Renee blurted out. 6 months ago. Said you two were divorcing, that I might be able to get visitation if I helped her case against you. Vincent's blood ran cold. What else did Diana say? That you were abusive, that you controlled her and Leo through fear and manipulation. Renee hesitated. But when I saw the news about her arrest, about what she'd actually done to Leo, I knew I had to come, to see the truth for myself. Vincent studied her, weighing possibilities and threats. Diana reached out to you as part of her plan to destroy me. She was going to use you to challenge my custody of Leo if I survived her murder attempt. Renee blanched. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You just saw an opportunity to insert yourself into Leo's life without doing any of the work of parenthood. Vincent's voice was cutting. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this hospital and never contact Leo again. If you try, I'll have you arrested for attempted kidnapping. Diana's messages to you will provide enough evidence to make the charges stick. Renee stared at him, her expression hardening. You always were a cold bastard, Vincent. I feel sorry for that kid, stuck with you as a father. Vincent leaned in close. Feel sorry for yourself, Renee. Leo has a father who would burn the world to protect him. What does he have in you? A woman who traded him for a fix 15 years ago and only remembered he existed when it might benefit her. He straightened. Security will escort you out. As guards led Renee away, Vincent received another call from Dominic. We've got another problem. Bradley Thompson was released on bail an hour ago. His lawyer pulled strings, got a sympathetic judge. Vincent's mind raced. Bradley free was Bradley dangerous, to Vincent's plans and potentially to Leo and Audrey. Where is he now? Heading to his penthouse, but he made a call right after release. To someone named Renee Campbell. Pieces clicked into place in Vincent's mind. Bradley was activating contingency plans, using Renee as a distraction while he prepared something else. Something Vincent hadn't anticipated. I need to move Leo and Audrey, Vincent decided. Tonight. Chapter 6. The Point of No Return. Under cover of darkness, Vincent executed a plan he'd prepared but hoped never to use. With Dominic's help and Tessa's medical expertise, Leo and Audrey were secretly transferred to a private medical facility owned by a former patient of Vincent's, a wealthy businesswoman who owed him her life and had no connections to Kessler, Bradley, or the hospital. The moment they were secure, Vincent turned his attention to Bradley. If he had been released on bail, despite the overwhelming evidence against him, someone powerful was still protecting him. Someone Vincent hadn't identified yet. We need to know who posted his bail, Vincent told Naomi during a clandestine meeting in a parking garage. And who's been visiting him in custody? Naomi looked troubled. Vincent, I've been removed from the case. Internal Affairs is reviewing my conduct after complaints about my personal relationship with a key witness. Me, Vincent realized. They're saying you and I are involved. Classic discrediting tactic. And it's working. My access has been restricted, and they're re-examining all the evidence I helped collect. This was a significant setback. Without Naomi's official support, Vincent's carefully constructed legal strategy was crumbling. There's something else, Naomi added hesitantly. Diana's claiming she has evidence that you abused her, that the accident was her attempt to escape you with Leo. Vincent's laugh was hollow. And they're believing this? Some are. She's very convincing, and she has documentation, photos of injuries, medical records, witness statements from friends. All fabricated. Of course, but it's creating reasonable doubt. And Bradley's team is amplifying it, painting you as a vengeful, abusive husband framing innocent people. Vincent absorbed this information with cold calculation. The legal avenue was becoming compromised. That left fewer options, all of them darker and more permanent than he had initially planned. Thank you for telling me, he said finally. You should distance yourself from me now. Completely. Naomi studied his face. What are you planning, Vincent? It's better you don't know. Back in the safe house he'd established months earlier, Vincent reassessed. The crucial discovery came when he hacked into Bradley's cloud storage using credentials obtained during his surveillance. There, he found a folder labeled Insurance, containing videos of Diana with various men, including several hospital board members, all carefully filmed without their knowledge. Bradley had been blackmailing his way up the corporate ladder for years, with Diana as his willing accomplice. The videos also revealed something Vincent hadn't known. Diana's affair with Bradley had begun 3 years earlier, not 6 months as he'd believed. Their conspiracy against Vincent had been in motion much longer than he realized. Most disturbing was a recorded conversation between Bradley and Diana discussing a permanent solution to the Vincent problem dating back 18 months, long before the crash. They had considered poison, staged suicide, various accidents. The crash that injured Leo and Audrey hadn't been their first attempt. merely their most desperate after other plans failed. Vincent's resolve hardened further. These people had spent years plotting his death, endangering his son, corrupting his marriage. The system was failing to deliver justice. He would have to create his own. First, he needed to neutralize the legal threat. Using Dominic's connections, Vincent located the source of Bradley's bail money, Theodore Wexler, president of the hospital board and Bradley's most powerful ally. More digging revealed Wexler's vulnerability, a predilection for young prostitutes, facilitated by Bradley and documented in those same insurance files. Vincent arranged for copies of that evidence to reach Wexler through untraceable channels, along with a simple message: withdraw all support from Thompson or this goes public tomorrow. Within hours, Bradley's legal team was notified that his bail money had been withdrawn. By evening, he was back in custody, with additional conditions preventing further release. Next, Vincent addressed Diana's abuse claims. He compiled 15 years of medical records showing he had never sought treatment for inflicting injuries, nor had Diana for receiving them. He gathered travel records proving he was out of town during periods when Diana claimed abuse occurred. Most significantly, he recovered deleted videos from their home security system showing Diana's self-inflicting injuries she later attributed to him. This evidence he sent anonymously to the district attorney, the defense attorneys, and several journalists who had reported Diana's claims. By morning, her credibility was shattered, her legal strategy in tatters. With these external threats contained, Vincent prepared for the final phase of his plan. Bradley Thompson had not just been a corrupt administrator and faithless friend. According to the recovered videos, he had been present at the crash site before emergency services arrived. He had removed evidence, coached Diana on what to say, and, most unforgivably, delayed calling for help while he ensured his own protection. Those crucial minutes might have cost Leo his full recovery. For that alone, Bradley deserved more than prison. Vincent contacted Dominic one last time. I need access to Thompson. In custody. Dominic shook his head. That's impossible, even for me. Federal detention has layers of security. Then I need him out of custody. Temporarily. What are you planning, Doc? Vincent's expression remained impassive. Justice. 2 days later, the vehicle transporting Bradley Thompson from the federal courthouse to the detention center was involved in an apparent accident. In the confusion, armed men in masks extracted Bradley and disappeared with him. Hours later, Bradley awoke zip-tied to a chair in an empty warehouse, not unlike Howard Kessler before him. Unlike Kessler, however, no cameras recorded this encounter. No confession was sought. Vincent stood before him, unrecognizable in dark clothing, his face obscured. Who are you? Bradley demanded, struggling against his restraints. Do you know who I am? What this will cost you? I know exactly who you are, Vincent replied, his voice altered by a device. A man who left a 17-year-old boy to die while he covered his tracks. Realization dawned slowly on Bradley's face. Mercer? Vincent Mercer? Vincent removed his mask. Hello, Bradley. What followed was not an interrogation, but a reckoning. Vincent laid out every detail of Bradley's crimes, not just against him, but against countless patients whose care had been compromised by Bradley's embezzlement, against the young doctors whose careers he'd destroyed to protect his schemes, against the women he'd coerced and blackmailed. The legal system might eventually punish you for some of this, Vincent concluded. But not all. Not enough. What are you going to do? Bradley asked, his earlier bravado replaced by genuine fear. Vincent prepared a syringe. A cocktail of my own design. Potent neurotoxins that will systematically destroy your brain function. Slowly, over years. You'll remain conscious as your cognitive abilities deteriorate. Your memories, your intelligence, your personality, all gradually erased while you watch helplessly. Bradley began to panic. Vincent, please, we can make a deal. The way you made deals with my wife? With Kessler? With Wexler? Vincent approached with the syringe. No more deals, Bradley. Just consequences. As Vincent prepared to administer the injection, Bradley made his final desperate play. I have information about Leo's condition, something the doctors don't know. Vincent paused. What about Leo? The medication he was given after the crash, it wasn't standard protocol. It was experimental, designed to induce retrograde amnesia. If he wakes up fully, he won't remember the crash or what led to it. You're lying. Check his blood work from the first 24 hours. The compound is called MX47. Still in trials, not FDA approved. Diana got it from a research contact. Vincent's mind raced. This explained why Leo's recovery had been so compromised, why standard treatments had been ineffective. And it meant Leo's current treatment might be actively harmful. Why would you tell me this now? Bradley's eyes darted frantically. Because I want to live. I'll tell you everything. Names, dates, account numbers. Whatever you want. Vincent lowered the syringe, his expression unreadable. Start talking. For the next hour, Bradley confessed everything. Not just about the conspiracy against Vincent, but about the entire corrupt network he'd built. He named judges who had been bribed, officers who had concealed evidence, doctors who had falsified records. He detailed offshore accounts, shell companies, blackmail materials. Vincent recorded it all. When Bradley had nothing left to give, Vincent prepared a different syringe. Wait. Bradley cried. You said if I told you everything. I said nothing, Vincent corrected him coldly. You assumed. The injection Vincent administered wasn't the neurotoxin he had described. It was something else entirely, a compound that would induce complete paralysis for several hours, followed by unconsciousness. You'll wake up back in federal custody, Vincent explained as the drug took effect. With no memory of how you got there. But with this, he held up the recording, in the possession of every law enforcement agency on the eastern seaboard. Even your most corrupt allies won't be able to save you now. As Bradley's eyes widened in horror, Vincent leaned close. You tried to take everything from me. My family, my career, my life. Instead, I'm taking everything from you. Your freedom, your reputation, your future. Bradley's body was discovered outside the federal building the next morning, unconscious but alive, with a USB drive containing his full confession taped to his chest. By evening, the case had blown wide open. Arrests were made across 3 states. The hospital board was dissolved. Investigations were launched into every aspect of the facility's operations. And Vincent, watching from the shadows, knew that justice had been served his way. Chapter 7. Fragments and Reflections. 3 months later, Vincent sat beside Leo's bed in the private medical facility, reading aloud from The Count of Monte Cristo, Leo's favorite book before the accident. The symbolism wasn't lost on Vincent. A story of a man wrongfully imprisoned who returns to exact elaborate revenge on those who betrayed him. Leo's recovery had been remarkable once the correct treatment protocol was implemented. Bradley's information about the experimental amnesia drug had been crucial. Leo now had limited mobility, could speak in short sentences, and showed steady cognitive improvement. His memories were fragmented. He recognized Vincent and recalled portions of his childhood, but the events leading up to the crash remained a blank. Audrey, too, had made progress. Though confined to a wheelchair, her mind was sharp. Unlike Leo, she remembered everything, including Diana's betrayal and her deliberate attempt to kill them both. He doesn't need to remember, Audrey told Vincent during one of their private conversations. Some burdens aren't meant to be carried. Vincent wasn't certain he agreed. Part of him wanted Leo to know exactly what his mother had done, the depths of her betrayal. Another part recognized that such knowledge would only cause more pain. The legal proceedings against Diana, Bradley, Kessler, and their network continued. Bradley's comprehensive confession had implicated dozens, leading to a sprawling federal case that dominated local headlines. Diana had attempted suicide in custody, or had staged an attempt for sympathy. Opinions differed. Either way, she had been transferred to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. Vincent had avoided the spotlight successfully. His cooperation with federal authorities had been handled anonymously, his role in exposing the conspiracy attributed to confidential informants. As far as the public knew, Vincent Mercer remained missing, possibly another victim of the corruption he had helped expose. This arrangement suited Vincent perfectly. He had no desire to return to his former life or identity. That person, the dedicated healer, the trusting husband, the optimistic father, had died the night his family was brought into the emergency room. Tessa visited regularly, bringing news from the outside world and helping with Leo's therapy. She was the only person besides Audrey who knew the full extent of Vincent's actions, what he had done, what he had been willing to do. The FBI is closing in on the last members of Kessler's network, she reported one evening. They found evidence linking him to 3 more deaths, former colleagues who threatened to expose him. Vincent nodded absently, his focus on Leo, who was attempting to write his name with his recovering right hand. Vincent, Tessa said carefully. It's over. You won. Maybe it's time to think about what comes next. This is what comes next, he replied, gesturing to Leo. His recovery. Audrey's care. And after that, you can't live as a ghost forever. Vincent had no answer. The truth was, he hadn't planned beyond his revenge. Every decision, every action for the past year had been focused on destroying those who had betrayed him. Now that justice had been served, he felt oddly hollow. Later that night, as Vincent reviewed Leo's latest neurological assessment, his secure phone rang. The caller ID showed Naomi Walsh's number, unexpected, since they had agreed to cease communication months earlier. They're offering Diana a deal, Naomi said without preamble. Reduced charges in exchange for testimony against the remaining defendants. Vincent's grip tightened on the phone. What kind of deal? 10 years, possibly less with good behavior. She'd avoid the attempted murder charges. Unacceptable, Vincent said flatly. It's out of my hands. The federal prosecutor thinks her testimony is crucial for the financial crimes cases. And what about the fact that she tried to kill my son and sister? Naomi's voice softened. I'm sorry, Vincent. The system isn't perfect. After the call ended, Vincent sat in darkness, his mind churning. The thought of Diana serving minimal time, potentially rebuilding her life while Leo struggled with permanent disabilities, was intolerable. This wasn't justice, it was expedience. He was still sitting there when a nurse rushed in. Dr. Mercer, Leo is asking for you. He seems agitated. Vincent found his son awake, his eyes wild with confusion and distress. Dad, Leo managed, his speech halting but urgent. I remember, the car. Mom. Vincent's heart raced. What do you remember, Leo? She said. We were all better off dead. She wanted to punish you. Leo's fragmented memories had begun returning, not in chronological order, but in emotional flashes. This particular memory was from the car just before the crash, according to Audrey's account. Vincent took his son's hand. It's okay. You're safe now. She can't hurt you anymore. Leo's eyes filled with tears. Why did she hate us so much? It was the question Vincent had asked himself countless times over the past year. Why had Diana, his partner of 15 years, turned against him so completely? Was it simply greed, ambition, or something deeper, some fundamental flaw in their relationship he had never recognized? I don't know, son, Vincent admitted. Sometimes people make choices we can never understand. As Leo drifted back to sleep, Vincent made a decision. Diana's potential deal required decisive action. The legal system might fail to deliver appropriate justice, but Vincent wouldn't. The next morning, he contacted Dominic once more. I need access to the psychiatric facility where Diana is being held. Dominic sighed heavily. Doc, you're playing with fire. Again. One last time, Vincent promised. Then it's over. 2 nights later, Vincent entered Diana's room at Lakewood Psychiatric Center, using credentials provided by one of Dominic's associates. Diana was asleep, sedated by her evening medication. Vincent stood over her, studying the face he had once loved. In sleep, she looked almost like the woman he had married, peaceful, untroubled by the weight of her betrayals. He reached into his pocket and removed a small vial. It would be simple, a quick injection, undetectable in routine toxicology. By morning, Diana Mercer would be beyond the reach of prosecutors' deals or reduced sentences. His hand hovered over her foreline. I know you're there, Vincent, Diana whispered, her eyes still closed. I've been waiting for you. Chapter 8, Reckonings. Vincent froze, the vial still in his hand. Diana's eyes opened slowly, lucid despite the sedatives. Are you here to kill me? She asked, her voice eerily calm. Vincent tucked the vial back into his pocket. I'm here for answers. Diana smiled faintly. After everything you've done, you still think there are answers that would satisfy you? Try me. She studied him, taking in his transformed appearance. You look different. Harder. I almost didn't recognize you. Stop stalling, Diana. I want to know why. 15 years of marriage. A son we raised together. Why throw it all away? Why try to kill Leo and Audrey? Diana's expression shifted, a glimpse of the calculating woman behind the facade. You really want the truth? All of it. Every last word. She pushed herself up to sitting position. I never loved you, Vincent. Not the way you loved me. I admired you, respected you, appreciated the life you provided. But love? No. The blunt admission struck deeper than Vincent had expected. I married you because you were stable, ambitious, the perfect partner for the life I wanted. She laughed softly. And for years, it worked. I played my role. You played yours. We built something that looked perfect from the outside. And Leo? Was he just another prop in your performance? Diana's face softened slightly. I loved Leo in my way, but he was always more yours than mine. You two had this connection, this world I wasn't part of. So you tried to kill him because you were jealous? No, Diana snapped. I never intended for Leo to be in that car. He was supposed to be at his friend's house that night. He came home unexpectedly, overheard me arguing with Audrey. He insisted on coming along. Vincent's fingers curled into fists. That doesn't explain why you deliberately crashed the car. Because Audrey knew everything. Not just about Bradley, but about my past, things I'd hidden for decades. She was going to ruin everything. And when Leo started asking questions, threatening to call you. Diana's voice trailed off. You panicked, Vincent finished. And decided my sister and son were acceptable casualties. Diana's eyes hardened. You want to judge me? Fine. But you've hardly been a saint in all this. The things you've done for revenge, breaking into homes, threatening people, manipulating evidence. How many laws have you broken, Vincent? How many lives have you destroyed? Only those who deserved it. That's what I thought too, Diana replied. That you deserved what happened. That you'd taken me for granted for years, treated me like an accessory to your brilliant career. That your sister had no right to interfere in my life. That sometimes sacrifices are necessary. Vincent studied her with clinical detachment. You're trying to create a moral equivalence between us. It won't work. I never would have harmed Leo. Or you. No matter what you did. But you're here now, Diana observed, glancing meaningfully at his pocket where the vial was hidden, ready to play executioner. For a long moment, silence hung between them. I didn't come here to kill you, Vincent said finally. I came here to understand. And now you do. I'm a monster, just like you've become. Vincent shook his head. No, Diana. I still don't understand. And I don't think I ever will. He turned to leave, but Diana's voice stopped him. They're offering me a deal, you know. I'll be out in less than 10 years. Maybe sooner. Vincent looked back at her. I know. Aren't you going to do something about that? The ruthless Vincent Mercer I've been hearing about wouldn't let me get away with a slap on the wrist. The old Vincent might have acted out of rage. The new one understands that some punishments are worse than death. He stepped closer to her bed. You'll serve your reduced sentence, Diana. And when you get out, you'll find that everything you valued, status, luxury, influence, is gone forever. Your name will be synonymous with corruption and betrayal. No one will trust you. No one will welcome you. He leaned down, his voice dropping to a whisper. And Leo will never see you again. I've made certain of that. He'll recover, graduate, build a life, all without his mother. You'll be less than a memory to him. You'll be nothing. Diana's composure cracked, real emotion bleeding through. You can't keep him from me forever. He's my son too. He stopped being your son the moment you decided his life was expendable. Vincent straightened. Goodbye, Diana. This is the last time you'll ever see me. As he walked out, Diana called after him, her voice rising with desperation. This isn't over, Vincent. I'll find a way back. I always do. Vincent didn't look back. Outside the facility, Tessa waited in a car with the engine running. Did you get what you needed? She asked as he slid into the passenger seat. Yes, Vincent replied. It's finished. They drove in silence back to the private medical center where Leo and Audrey were recuperating. As they pulled into the parking lot, Tessa turned to him. What will you do now? It was the question Vincent had been avoiding for months. His revenge was complete. Justice, such as it was, had been served. The elaborate infrastructure he'd built for his vendetta, safe houses, surveillance equipment, false identities, was no longer necessary. I don't know, he admitted. I've been Vincent Mercer the Avenger for so long. I'm not sure who I am without that purpose. Tessa touched his arm gently. Maybe it's time to find out. Inside, Vincent found Audrey in Leo's room, reading to him as he dozed. She looked up as Vincent entered, immediately sensing something had changed. You saw her, Audrey stated, not a question. Vincent nodded. It's done. Did you? Audrey glanced at Leo, lowering her voice. Take care of it. Not in the way you think, Vincent replied. Some people need to live with the consequences of their actions. Audrey studied him. And now we focus on recovery. Yours and Leo's. But that night, as Vincent sat alone in his modest apartment near the medical facility, he confronted the emptiness that had replaced his vengeful purpose. He had spent a year dismantling his old life and the lives of those who had betrayed him. He had succeeded beyond his expectations. Yet here he sat, hollowed out, unsure of his next step. His phone rang. Naomi Walsh again. "I heard Diana's psychiatric evaluation came back," she said. "Severe narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features. The prosecutor is reconsidering the deal in light of the findings." Meaning she likely won't get the reduced sentence after all. They're concerned about her testimony's reliability given the diagnosis. Vincent absorbed this information with surprising neutrality. "Thank you for letting me know. There's something else," Naomi continued. "The FBI is closing the case on your disappearance. Officially, Vincent Mercer is presumed dead, a victim of the conspiracy he helped expose from the shadows." "I see. This gives you options, Vincent. You could start fresh somewhere. New identity, new life. No one would connect you to any of this." The idea was tempting, vanishing completely, leaving behind the wreckage of his former existence. But there was Leo to consider. And Audrey. "I need to think about it," he told Naomi. After hanging up, Vincent opened his laptop and pulled up a folder labeled Contingencies. Inside were detailed plans for various scenarios, including one titled Aftermath. He had prepared for this moment, even when consumed by revenge. The plan was comprehensive. New identities for himself, Leo, and Audrey. A property in the Pacific Northwest purchased through untraceable channels. Financial arrangements that would support them indefinitely. A clean break from everything and everyone connected to their past. As Vincent reviewed the details, he felt something unexpected, reluctance. The plan had been created by a man consumed with rage and betrayal. The person he was now, still hardened, still changed, but no longer burning with that all-consuming fire, wasn't certain this scorched earth approach was necessary. Leo and Audrey deserved stability, not another upheaval. And Vincent himself, perhaps he deserved the chance to rebuild rather than simply to disappear. He closed the laptop without making a decision. Tomorrow would be soon enough. Tonight, he would allow himself something he hadn't permitted in over a year, a moment of peace. Chapter 9. Ashes and Embers. 6 months later, autumn painted the Pacific Northwest in brilliant reds and golds. Vincent stood on the deck of a cedar-shingled house overlooking Puget Sound, watching a fishing boat cut across the steely water. He had chosen a middle path, neither completely vanishing nor returning to his former life. Using his presumed dead status to advantage, he had established new identities for his family, but maintained carefully concealed connections to their past. Financial resources recovered from Bradley and Kessler funded their new start, a justice of its own kind. Leo, now 19, had made remarkable progress. He walked with a slight limp, but was otherwise physically recovered. His cognitive abilities had largely returned, though certain memories remained permanently lost, including, mercifully, much of the trauma surrounding the crash. He had begun taking online college courses, his interest in medicine undiminished despite everything. Audrey had adapted to life in a wheelchair with characteristic determination. She had transformed the ground floor of their house into a ceramic studio and was selling her work through local galleries under her new name. Vincent himself had found an unexpected niche. Using credentials established through Dominic's connections, he worked as a medical consultant for remote communities along the coast. His practice was small, discreet, and deeply appreciated by the isolated populations he served. It wasn't the high-stakes surgery he had once performed, but it satisfied something essential in him, the need to heal rather than harm. "Dad," Leo's voice called from inside the house. "You've got a call." Vincent stepped inside, taking the phone from his son. "Hello. It's Naomi. We need to talk." 10 minutes later, Vincent sat alone in his study, processing what Naomi had told him. Diana had managed to manipulate the system again. Despite the psychiatric evaluation, despite the overwhelming evidence against her, she had secured a deal. In exchange for testimony against the few remaining defendants, she would serve just 7 years. More disturbing, she had been talking about Leo, insisting on her parental rights, demanding visitation once she was transferred to a minimum security facility. She won't get it, Naomi assured him. But I thought you should know she's still fixated on finding you both. After the call ended, Vincent sat motionless, his mind calculating possibilities and threats. Diana was resourceful, manipulative, and patient. Even from prison, even under a different name, she could potentially trace them. And once released, his contemplation was interrupted by Leo's appearance in the doorway. "Everything okay?" his son asked. Vincent looked at him, at the young man who had survived so much, who carried scars both visible and invisible, who deserved peace and security above all else. "Just some news about a former patient," Vincent lied smoothly. "Nothing important." Later that evening, after Leo and Audrey had gone to bed, Vincent retrieved a secure laptop from his safe. He had maintained certain resources from his year of vengeance, contacts, access, capabilities that existed outside legitimate channels. He had promised himself he would never use them again, that the ruthlessness he had embraced was behind him. But some threats required preemptive action. He drafted a message to Dominic Vargas, carefully worded. "Need monitoring of Subject D. New developments concerning potential threat to family. Defensive measures only at this stage." Vincent paused before sending, his finger hovering over the key. Was he overreacting? Allowing Diana's manipulations to pull him back into darkness? Or was this prudent protection of what he held most dear? The answer came when he thought of Leo's vulnerability, of Audrey's hard-won peace, of the fragile new life they had all constructed from the ashes of betrayal. He pressed send. 3 days later, Dominic's reply arrived. Monitoring established. Subject isolated after security incident, in custody. Hospital transfer pending. Window of opportunity available, if required. Awaiting instructions. Vincent understood the subtext. Diana had been involved in some kind of altercation in prison, resulting in her temporary isolation. She would soon be transferred to a medical facility for evaluation or treatment. During that transfer, she would be vulnerable. The old Vincent, the surgeon, the healer, the man who had taken an oath to do no harm, would have rejected the implicit offer immediately. The new Vincent, forged in betrayal and tempered by vengeance, considered it seriously. One final action to permanently eliminate the threat Diana posed. A clean end to the story that had begun in that hospital corridor more than 18 months ago. He composed his response carefully. "No action at this time. Continue monitoring. Alert me to any attempts at contact or information gathering regarding L or family." Vincent sent the message, then deleted the entire conversation. He had made his choice, restraint, for now. Not out of mercy or forgiveness, but because Diana, confined and isolated, posed no immediate threat. And because he had promised Leo and Audrey that the chaos was behind them. But Vincent harbored no illusions about Diana or her potential for destruction. If the threat level changed, if she made any move toward his family, his response would be swift and final. The capacity for ruthlessness remained within him, banked like embers that could ignite at a moment's notice. The next morning, Vincent drove Leo to his physical therapy appointment in the nearby town. As they traveled the scenic coastal road, Leo was uncharacteristically quiet. "Something on your mind?" Vincent asked. Leo hesitated before responding. "I had a dream last night. About Mom." Vincent's hands tightened imperceptibly on the steering wheel. "What kind of dream?" "She was standing at the end of a long hallway, calling my name. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but she looked different. Not like I remember her." "Dreams are just the brain processing information," Vincent said carefully. "They don't mean anything." Leo turned to look at his father. "Do you ever think about her? About what happened?" Vincent considered his answer. "I think about the consequences of her actions. The harm she caused you and Audrey. That's what matters. You never talk about how you felt when you found out. About the betrayal. Some wounds don't benefit from examination, Leo." They drove in silence for several minutes before Leo spoke again. "You know what I realized in therapy last week? I'm angry at her, but I've never really grieved her. It's like she died, but she's still out there somewhere." Vincent glanced at his son. "What would help you to process this?" "I don't know," Leo admitted. "Maybe understanding why, or just acknowledging that the mom I thought I had never really existed." Vincent pulled the car over at a scenic viewpoint overlooking the ocean. "Your mother made choices, Leo. Terrible, selfish choices that hurt the people who loved her most. You can try to understand those choices, but don't expect the answers to bring you peace. Is that why you never try to understand? To protect yourself from more pain. Vincent was struck by his son's insight. Maybe, or maybe I understood enough to know that some betrayals can't be explained or justified. Leo nodded slowly. I don't want to be eaten up by it, by anger or confusion or grief. I want to move forward. That's what we're doing, Vincent assured him. All of us. Moving forward. They continued to the appointment, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. But Leo's words lingered in Vincent's mind. His son was healing, not just physically, but emotionally, finding his way toward acceptance and growth despite everything. That night, Vincent made a decision. From his secure files, he extracted a single document, Diana's psychiatric evaluation, which he had obtained through unofficial channels. He placed it in an envelope along with a brief note. Leo, you asked about understanding. This may provide some context, though not the closure you seek. Read it only if you feel ready. Remember that her condition explains her actions, but doesn't excuse them. Dad. He left the envelope on Leo's desk, giving his son the choice to seek answers or leave the past unopened. A week later, as autumn deepened toward winter, Vincent received another message from Dominic. Subject D transferred to psychiatric wing of Federal Medical Center. Security minimal. Request updated instructions. Vincent stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without response. Diana would remain in custody for years. Leo was healing. Audrey was rebuilding her life. The immediate threat had passed. But Vincent kept the channels open, the resources available, the vigilance undiminished. He had learned the cost of trust, of believing the danger was past. He would not make that mistake again. That evening, he found Leo in the living room, staring into the fireplace where the envelope Vincent had given him was burning, its contents already consumed by flames. I read it, Leo said without turning. About her diagnosis. Her history. Vincent sat beside his son. And it helped, in a way, to know it wasn't something I did or didn't do, that she was always going to be who she was. Leo poked at the burning paper with a poker. But I've decided I don't want her in my head anymore. I don't want to waste any more time trying to understand someone who didn't value my life. Vincent felt a surge of pride mixed with sorrow, pride in his son's resilience, sorrow for the maternal relationship Leo would never have. So I'm moving forward, Leo continued with quiet determination. Starting tomorrow, I've applied for an in-person program at the community college. Pre-med. Vincent raised an eyebrow. You're sure? I want to help people. Like you did. Like you still do. Leo met his father's gaze. I know we had to leave our old lives behind. I know some doors are closed forever. But I'm not going to let what she did determine who I become. In that moment, Vincent saw himself in his son, not the vengeful specter he had become in the aftermath of betrayal, but the healer he had been before. The man who had dedicated himself to saving lives rather than destroying them. I'll support whatever path you choose, Vincent said, placing a hand on Leo's shoulder. Later, alone in his study, Vincent composed a final message to Dominic. Terminate surveillance. Maintain alert status only for direct threats. Compensation transferred as agreed. It was time to truly move forward. To focus on rebuilding rather than revenge. To be the father Leo needed and the brother Audrey deserved. Vincent Mercer, or the man who had once used that name, looked out at the darkness beyond his window. Somewhere in that darkness, Diana plotted and schemed, Bradley served his sentence, and Howard Kessler lived with the consequences of decades of corruption. Their fates were no longer his concern unless they directly threatened his family. He had extracted his pound of flesh from each of them. Justice had been served, not by the system, but by his own hand. The price had been high, his identity, his career, the life he had built over decades. But he had protected what mattered most, his son and sister. And he had discovered something essential about himself in the process. The capacity for ruthlessness that had driven his revenge now stood guard around his new life, a barrier between his family and any who would harm them. Vincent closed his laptop and turned away from the window. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and opportunities. For tonight, he would rest in the knowledge that those he loved were safe, that the immediate threats had been neutralized, and that he remained ready. Always ready, should danger ever approach his door again. Some men forgave. Some men forgot. Vincent Mercer didn't either. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.